I was in the venue where the Founders, my band, the Founders, are going to be playing this Thursday, last week, to promote for the event. I brought some handbill flyers there and some stickers to, put our name out there and put the event out there so that people who attend can, see that we're going to be playing. So I'm doing some promotion in the club, handing out some flyers, putting them on the tables and the bar. And while I'm standing at the bar doing some promotion, a black woman comes up to me at the bar and says, "Are you a racist?" And I said to this African-American woman, "What in God's name would make you ask me that question?" Obviously, she didn't know who I was, or she never would have asked that question. But I'm like, why would you think that about me? What possible impression would I give you that I'm a racist person? Did you hear me say anything to that effect? She said, "What you're wearing." And I said, "What I'm wearing? What are you talking about?" And she said, "The things that are on your shirt and your hat." And I said, I think for a minute about, had to look down for a second, because I just threw on a shirt that I had laying around and went out. I had a 3%er shirt on this night. It has, the 3 Roman numeral, and then it has 2 crossed old school Revolutionary War era black powder muskets on it. And then it had the Gadsden snake underneath that. And there were no words on it. It was just those symbols. It had the 3, the Gadsden snake, and then the crossed rifles. And I'm sitting there and just thinking for a second, how could she possibly interpret that as any kind of a racist symbology? Could you possibly believe that black powder musket rifles are symbols of racism? Could you possibly think that the Gadsden snake, a coiled rattlesnake, is a symbol of racism? When has the coiled rattlesnake ever been associated with racism? And see, this is the effective power of the mind-controlled mass media. They actually have people, ignorant people who aren't readers in society, believing that symbols like this are racist. See, if you're anti-government, you're racist. Imagine this. And then, of all things, she said my hat. I was wearing a baseball cap, a black baseball cap with the Ben Franklin Join or Die logo on it. Now, for people who aren't familiar with that, the Join or Die symbol is the segmented rattlesnake that was used as a rallying banner during the First American Revolution. And Franklin would publish this to try to get men to join the militias in newspapers and newsletters. And it meant either join together against the British or you're going to be in big trouble because, they're coming for your rights and possibly your life. So this was the flag that was actually the unifying banner for all the militias at the Battle of Bunker Hill, which was the first major battle of the American Revolution. The Franklin flag, as it was known, or the Join or Die flag. And this symbol of the segmented rattlesnake with the words Join or Die under it was on my hat. And my answer to her was, "Do you know what that symbol is on my hat?" That's how after the shock and awe of being called racist or being asked whether I was racist and saying, not only am I not racist, I think racism is one of the biggest ways humanity is divided and conquered and ultimately enslaved, to her. And she was like, "Oh." And I said, "Yeah, but not just that." After I said, "Well, what made you think that?" And she said, "Your shirt and hat." I said, "Well, do you even know what's on my hat? Do you know what that is or who made it?" And she said, "No." I said, "Well, First of all, why would you think it's racist if you don't know what it is? Secondly, do you know who made that? And she said, no. And I said, that was made by Benjamin Franklin, one of the founding fathers and revolutionaries of America during the Revolutionary War era. And I said, do you know what he did? And she said, no. And I said, he founded the first abolitionist society in America in 1775. He founded the first anti-black slavery society, an abolitionist, the Pennsylvania Abolitionist Society, right here in Philadelphia in 1775. So you're talking about the person who championed and pioneered the anti-slavery movement in the North before anybody else was talking about it as a big problem, and accusing me because I'm wearing the symbol of his rallying cry for the American Revolution against the British, who were instrumental in bringing those slaves over here to America, to the South. Not that the North wasn't involved in that at all, but the South was obviously the people who were utilizing that slave labor force. This guy set up the first organized society to try to put that practice down. And you know what I heard from the other end of the line, folks? Crickets. Chirp, chirp, chirping away. Absolutely nothing to say back, because she was so embarrassed at how ignorant she was that she did not know any of this part of our own history. These are the kind of golems you have walking through society on a day-to-day basis. And it's not getting any better. Because these people's minds are owned. They're owned by the media. They're owned by the government. They're most of all owned by the social engineers. They don't even understand how their minds are socially engineered at all, or who's doing it. They're reveling in their ignorance because, this is my time to get back at the white man. You know, the white man is becoming the new cultural enemy. And this is what these social engineers are trying to foment. The war between men and women in particular, and between the races as well. Between black and white. And they're succeeding. They're getting it done. I'm seeing evidence of it all over the place when I go out into society. It's like if you're a white man, you're being treated like you're the enemy. We are not the enemy. Because I'm a man and because I'm white and because I act like a man, I'm not your enemy. As a matter of fact, I'm one of the people fighting for human rights more than anybody else is. And this is why I need a break from this sometimes, folks. Because this is what I see on a day-to-day basis. And it starts to wear thin on you. It starts to wear you out. To see this is disgusting. It saps your energy. It saps your strength. It saps your will to continue to go on. Not that I'm going to stop, because I'm going to keep going. But people need to know how bad it is so we can get to work on this. We need to get to work on this, and you cannot remain silent about these issues. They have to be discussed in the forefront. How there's a war on men. How there's a war on white men in particular as well. This isn't a race issue. I'm trying to explain how the divide and conquer tactic is progressing in society. And people are still falling for it. How many people think that, it's all white people are the problem? Why? Because most white people in government are doing oppression to people of minority races. Of course they are. There is real racism happening there. That doesn't mean all white people are supportive of that. These people have to be more discriminatory in their understanding. They have to discriminate in the right way and realize it's not about white versus black. It's not about any race versus any race or men versus women. It's about government versus the people. It's about tyranny versus freedom. That's it. That's the only war going on. And people have to understand that we're already actively in a war. I talked about this in a recent interview on Veritas Radio. We're already actively in a war, folks. Thousands of people, over 5,000 people have been murdered since 9/11 without any trial by American police in America. I mean, the Nazis couldn't have done anything that successfully with the silent consent of the people. Being accused of being racist for wearing Ben Franklin iconography. I mean, you have to be kidding. And again, this has to do with this absolute bullshit garbage, with the rebel flag being removed from our culture because it's allegedly racist, when it wasn't about racism. It was about the right to secede from the Union and not be enslaved as states of a federal government. But now anything associated with that, see, she saw the crossed rifles and associated that with that elongated X of the rebel flag. And then probably associated the snake with the Tea Party, who she sees as, oh, they're rich white men who don't want their money taken away and they support the corporations. So that's the bad guy because they don't want socialism in America. They don't want the radical redistribution of wealth out of the hands of the people who have actually contributed to society through building businesses, etc. God forbid we have a voluntary society. You know what? I'm not a rabid capitalist either, folks. I'm not for communism and socialism, but I'm not a rabid capitalist either. I've talked about money as a form of mind control and how people get attached to it as a religion. But you know what? Going to real capitalism versus the crony form of capitalism we have now would be a great stopgap compared to moving into socialism and communism the way we're headed. Just like having a constitutional republic would certainly be a better way of being than moving into a form of totalitarianism than we are. Obviously, we have to go to a total anarchist society where there's no masters and slaves and no perceived legitimacy to violence and coercion in the form of government. And we have to go to a society where people in consciousness have come to such a level of consciousness that they see each other as they would see themselves and don't need monetary systems and move to a true gift economy. We're so far away from those levels of consciousness that it's laughable. Those have always been my positions, but are there stopgap measures to that? Hey, would I love to go to the form of government that the founders envisioned compared to what we have now? Yeah, it would be like heavenly in comparison to what we have now. Is that the end of it? No, it's got to go further than that. It's got to go to total anarchy. Meaning there is no government because there's no people who are masters and none who are slaves, and there's no subjects, and there's only natural law that is always in effect, and people understand what natural law is and they know the difference between right and wrong and they respect those boundary conditions. That's it. Same thing with the monetary system compared to the fractional reserve, absolute crony capitalism of fiat currency and absolute nonsense in the form of derivatives and bank fraud that we have now. Would it be like heavenly to go to a monetary system that was based in true voluntary capitalism? It'd be like heaven in comparison to what we have now.